assurance meetings. CISC, Ray.
We did the items in CISC you'll see in the second one. The first is terms of reference. I think there was quite a major discussion within CISC as to exactly what it was on the planet for, and the thought that we might divide it up into a smaller energetic innovation group as opposed to a larger strategy with the heads of clinical services. That is ongoing, and I'm due to meet Dr. Sue Stone to go through that, what it should look like in the future. It has bearings on how we relate to the our coastal care innovation. The clinical effective commissioning we talked about, and I won't redress that, and just draw your attention to a bid for funding from the British Heart Foundation that was supported for pop-up blood pressure and rhythm assessments within areas of deprivation, particularly across Sussex. And I haven't heard how we got on with that bid, but it's going through. Is that?
Yeah, I believe it was supported.
We certainly supported it because, and it really, there was some concerns that it was all duplicating what was happening within GP surgeries, but there is quite good evidence that there's a section of the population that isn't covered so well, and that's what this is aimed at. And the funding is full for the first year and partial for the second year, and nothing for the third year. So we will know in the process of the bid, the audit of it, as whether it is something that should be thought about in the future, or whether indeed it solves the problem. That's what I want to say.
Thank you. Any questions for Ray?
Could I make a comment?
Yeah, please do.
A positive one, Kieran. And just to say the LMC was shown this proposal initially, and we're wholeheartedly supportive.
Thank you very much.
Excellent. F&P, Jill.
It's the second page again. We spent a large part of the meeting, more than we had done previously, on performance, and as a result of that, some more actions have come out to get more information on certain elements of performance which concern members. Finance, again, we reviewed progress of 17-18, which we already reported, and briefly touched on 18-19. Didn't go into a great deal of difference because we had a separate meeting afterwards on the business plan, so that was focused on there. And expert determination, which we already talked about. Margaret also briefed the meeting on the steps that have been taken.
Thank you. Any questions? We covered all of that, I think, haven't we? Yeah, good. Primary care, Ray again.
The Primary Care Committee I took over from Jenny in November, and it is, as it is detailed in the report. I would like to make the comment that I personally was not sure of the exact remit and relationship between PCOG and the Primary Care Committee, and in particular the scheme of delegation in relation to the senior leadership team and the governing body. I think we are mandated by national guidances to the existence of B3C. There are some suggestions that the feeding committee, that we approve the recommendations, whether it should have a lay chair or not. Anyway, I have asked for a roundup of the primary care commissioning committees of the Alliance and their mechanisms and terms of reference, because it would seem sensible to me that there was some alignment across that. And so fundamentally the question is, if our remit is purely to deal with conflicts of interest and assure the governing body that the conflicts of interest have not altered decisions. That is one role, and it's a question of what in addition to that should P3C do that the governing body wants us to do. Is that a fair summary of the discussion? And I think it's an important discussion, and again I have requested a meeting with the senior leadership team and Dr. Sue Stone to address that.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, thank you. Peck Jan.
So we didn't actually have a meeting. It's been postponed to April. But what we did do is circulate virtually the Clinical Effectiveness Commission in two parts. One was a tranche 2 assurance on engagement, which PEC were very happy to do. Also an assurance on the initial, the starting of the project of tranche 3, which will be starting later on this year or soon. And we look at the engagement of that, and I think one concern that PEC has flagged is to make sure that those patients who are, those cohorts that are likely to be affected by the tranche 3 procedures are consulted.
Thank you. Any questions for Joanne? Quality, Alison.
Thank you. We've had one quality committee since the last governing body, and I think it would be fair to say that we are working towards alignment with the STP processes as a way forward. But there are, the detail is actually in the pack, but there are a few things I wanted just to mention. My concern over the lack of progress on the Looked After Children Action Plan after the audit, in that a programme manager hasn't been appointed yet. So just to alert the governing body that that is work in progress. The head of quality is trying to identify a clinical lead, that is a GP clinical lead, to support the current maternity leave at the moment, and that would be to align with the rest of the quality committees throughout the area. We currently lack a GP clinical lead, medical input to the quality committee. There are some outstanding financial commitments in relation to safeguarding gaps that are continuing to be progressed. Some of them have already been progressed, but there are some outstanding gaps in relation to that. But one positive is that we do have the Clinical Effectiveness Committee terms of reference coming to next week's Quality Committee, which will actually close the loop and I think give us confidence that the process is in place and assured.
Thank you. Any questions?
Only just to really support Alison there, because I think after all of the concern over the Looked After Children programme, and also Alison has mentioned a few times now the lack of direct clinical support to the working as a committee. I think these are things that shouldn't slip any further. I'd be worried if they slip further.
Yeah, agree. And it's pretty given that we had the Looked After Children conversation here last time. So,
Yes.
Yeah.
I'd just like to minute that we assume that we fixed it next week.
Yeah.
Sorry, thank you.
Stick with you then, Chris. Audit and assurance.
Audit and assurance, one limited assurance in terms of internal audit with regard to how our CSU is audited and the quality of that report. I note that whereas we used to get two a year, which were not particularly informative, we're now being told we're going to get one a year, so I don't expect that to improve the quality of that. But that's entirely outside of our control, although we do keep commenting on this when in the appropriate forum. Uniquely, the other areas of limited assurance all related to governance within the organisation, and I think it's the first time that's occurred. But it's been alluded to. Rafe alluded to the fact there's questions over the role and remit of CWSCCG. In terms of quality, we've addressed one of the issues, which is where it wasn't clear whether the Clinical Effectiveness Committee was going to be reviewed in future and so on, and that's been resolved. And we had a limited assurance on CISC, largely because it's new, and we want to avoid the same kind of problems we have with PCCC, which is that the role and remit is not fully understood in the governance model of the organisation going forward. So it was just a coincidence, I think, all three things came up, but they came up at a time when there is a lot of concern that we haven't got the governance model right within the organisation. So going forward, I think that does need to be a focus.
And we talked about Sue coming
Absolutely.
back to yeah, so that would be helpful in guiding her thinking, I'm sure. So thank you. Any questions for Chris? Okay, that concludes the main agenda. Does anybody in the audience have any questions on any of the items we've discussed? Yep.
Yes, please. Thank you, Chair. Just in listening here, there appears to be a disconnect between certain committees and the chain of events that go through. Can I ask that it's obviously when things come to the board, you have to make decisions, and therefore those decisions have to be made on committees beneath the board to do their job properly. Can I ask that will be done for future years, because it's obvious it hasn't always clicked between.
Yes.
You probably know.
Yeah, I know what you're getting at. Yes. Yeah. The incoming clinical chair has reflected that it's a good time to have that discussion. So there will be something coming back on how we make sure that works more effectively.
And the final thing then is really following on from Chris's comment. I do feel that at this point in any year, doesn't have to be this year, next year, year before, whatever. At the end of the year, the finance director should put forward a clear, concise picture of what is coming forward, because these figures are based on February's figures, not the March figures. And we've heard from the finance person that there's nothing going to change. So therefore, I fully agree with Chris's comment that at this stage, it must be clear what you're going to have as a problematical item, clearly identified on the face of the, it's only for information, but it needs to be clearly identified, because it took Chris a lot of time to drag it out of the finance director. I can say this, you may or may not agree, but that's the vision that I've had as a member of the public, and that's the sort of question that I would be asking if I was running my own board of governance, board in my own companies. That's the information I would want to know as chair or director of the company. Yeah. It's logical, and it didn't appear to...
Well, I take your point. Equally, I did hear Margaret's explanation around where we are in the cycle and the need to go through further negotiation and the rest of it. But we got in the end to...
In the end, but it took a lot of dragging out.
Well, okay, but let's say, I think we've got to recognise that our executive colleagues have a job to do, and part of that job is to make sure that we are informed as a board and you are informed as the public, but equally there's a job to do making sure that we take forward the work in the right way and at the time it's appropriate to do so. So I take the comment in that spirit that we need to get the balance right between keeping everybody informed and getting the work done. Anyone else? In which case, I'm afraid I'm going to have to throw you out on the basis that we have a part 2 to our agenda, which we need to resolve to exclude the press and members of the public for the remainder of the meeting, if everybody agrees so to do, which they do. Thank you very much for attending, everybody.